All right, guys, today on the show, we've got Paul Waggener. He is the founder of Operation Werewolf. And why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I run Operation Werewolf, which is a program of total life reform that sort of covers a lot of different concepts. Weightlifting, mental health, critical thinking, this kind of stuff. You can check out my website, operationwerewolf.com, if you're interested more in it. It's a lot of stuff. I'm sure we'll get into more of it during the interview, but if people want to check out a cursory glance, they can go there.
Cool. So I like to start things with a random question. What's your favorite place you've ever visited and why?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Last year was really cool. I got to go a couple of times over to Europe and hang out with some of the guys over there. So I would have to say, at least in recent years, the coolest place that I've gotten to go was we were in a little town in Venice for an Operation Werewolf meetup up there. But the best place that I've ever been is Olfane, which is the tribal property of my club, the Wolves in Virginia. That's always home, and that's always where my most inspiring and most excellent experiences come from. So.
Awesome. Is that where you're located right now, is in Virginia?
No, right now I'm on the Oregon coast. I've been here for the last 6 months, sort of just kind of disconnected from everything, and came out here to get a lot of projects done and sort of get into hyper productivity mode. But I'll be back over on the East Coast in about a month. So.
Okay, cool. Removing yourself from distractions, that kind of like Masatatsu Oyama kind of like disappear into the mountains thing, where you can really focus on your craft. Has that been productive for you? Has that worked out?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that a certain amount of that has to exist for anybody's practice. Wherever you can find the time to do that, it doesn't have to be for months at a time. It can even be for an hour at a time during your day. But my friend Craig Williams writes a lot about that. He has a book called Entering the Desert, which is sort of about maintaining this kind of internal space that you can sort of retreat to in order to free yourself up from those distractions. So I think a physical place to go or time where you can remove yourself from that is great, but I think we have to maintain that kind of throughout our daily lives in order to have that escape place of productivity where we can be. So wherever you are, you have to find that. I think that's a pretty important key of productivity.
Paul, yeah, this is Duffy. He's my primary student right now. I've kind of taken like a uchideshi kind of thing where it's like house disciple. I've got one disciple at a time, and I'm kind of taking him through. He was 425 pounds. We've got him down like almost 383 right now.
That's awesome.
Thanks. He went from not being able to squat the bar to squatting 225.
Fantastic. I love to see that kind of stuff, dude. Good on you.
Yeah, thanks. I was at that low point where it was like, there's no way I'm getting out of this. I'll die at 40, and my wife and child are gonna have to find something else to do because there's no way I can fix this. And then he came over and dragged my butt to the gym every day.
That's such an important thing, and it's why it's good to have dudes like Steven, because, guys like Steven are going to tell you, they're not going to say, okay, it, give up. They're going to be like, no, this is a fixable situation. And as soon as you can change that mindset or sometimes have somebody help you with that mindset of saying, look, you don't have to sit here forever. The future is unwritten, baby. I mean, the sun's still out. Let's get after it. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
respect.
I've rediscovered hope because of the training. And now I've gone from like barely being ready to go for an hour at the gym to signing up for a Spartan sprint next month. So it's just
nice. Good for you, man.
Very different person now.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
If you want to see that transformation, like if we've got our show Origin Story, which is taking, we've kind of week by week chronicle what we've been doing, and like you can see the transformation mostly mentally. You can see the attitude change, and that has been so rewarding. I love seeing it. It's beautiful.
We did a video where I did a side-by-side comparison where we took the first Metcon that he had me do on day 1 and put that side-by-side with me doing the same exact Metcon with a higher rep count on like week 19. And there's like this massive difference in how fast I'm going, how many reps I'm putting out. And yeah, like you said, attitude change is a big deal too.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't grasp, and why I think one of the big things to sort of break people's perception on is that even though so many people now in the United States are training and doing some kind of physical training, and especially, CrossFit got tons of people on the barbell and all this stuff, but that people still kind of associate it with this sort of meathead kind of bro culture, but that most of the guys I know that started training, it changed who they were as people on sort of a foundational level. And it creates within you all these different sort of ideas and concepts that you never had before you started training. And it really does change who you are as a human being when you start physically training. And then that's a process that never stops. You come to these realizations after you've got a certain amount of time invested, or if you've fallen off and come back to it. I mean, we say it with Operation Werewolf that physical training is never just physical. There's always another component. You're always working on other parts of your character rather than just the physical.
I love that so
awesome,
much.
Man.
That's great.
And, all of this stuff is also part of like a larger social sickness, which is this idea of like, fat shaming and all the rest of this kind of stuff. It created that whole, what is that slogan? Healthy at any size. It's objectively not true.
It's demonstrably not true. Yeah.
It's actually, and it's dangerous to purvey this concept as being true, and yet social narrative currently says healthy at any size. It's the same way as, if I told someone who was anorexic, hey, it's cool, you're healthy at any size. No, it's actually not healthy at any size, and they're actually harming themselves. And obesity should be treated in exactly the same way as anorexia. It doesn't mean that I should be disrespectful towards that person. What it means is they're not healthy, and they should be attempting to find help and to change their current situation, rather than what the easy way is to do, which is to say, no matter who I am right now and how I am right now, I'm fine just the way I am. And that's the current social sickness, is everyone is fine just the way they are.
That's
of course a ridiculous notion.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea to have, that you're fine exactly the way you are. Like that right. You shouldn't be climbing the mountain to greatness at all times. Like, why the hell not? It's like, I'm just gonna sit and check everything out.
And for those people that
it's a willful resistance to progress, and it's part of this idea that those people who do more, they're going to become castigated. They're going to be the ones that are pariah, because if you say, well, you should live up to your fullest potential and you should never be satisfied with where you are, people say that, well, that's like ableism, or it's fat shaming, or it's shaming this, or it's doing that. And of course, all it is encouraging people to live a happier, healthier, fuller life. But in our day and age, hey.
You're going to piss Duffy off. This is a touchy subject for him.
The reason I got to this point was so many people just refusing to, like, they would touch and like, hey, maybe you should, cut back a little bit. But no one really wanted to address the issue that I was just not taking care of myself. So now life is so much harder, and I have so long to go, and it's not their fault. I'm responsible for my own choices and my own body, but you got the people who are immorally disregarding their health because they just couldn't care less. Then you got people though that are enabling that behavior and promoting that behavior because we don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, you touched on an important point there too, man. Is that and what you said, I think. Is really important, but could slip through the cracks. But what you said, where you said, I made my own choices. This is a product of the decisions that I've made. Just that statement right there is so like unheard of right now, that you're taking ownership and saying that this is your own damn fault and that it's up to you to change it, is so outside the current social narrative, where people look for anything to blame but themselves. And so even just that right there of saying, I'm taking ownership of this, I'm taking responsibility for the decisions I've made, and I'm changing my life because I can, because it's up to me and it's in my hands. Man, that right there is now revolutionary thinking at this point.
Unfortunately, but...
Well, it's like I have to have this, like, I've got a 10-year-old son, and, he's influenced by the culture because, he watches, TV, watches, someone like, he sees those kinds of attitudes. And there's this sense of, like, and it's not from me, but there's this sense of entitlement and this sense of, like, things are not my fault that are in his mind. And that only happens because he sees it in the culture. He sees it in what's represented to him. And I have to have conversations with him, and I'm like, he'll point to reasons why he's doing stuff like, well, this person did this, or I feel this way because of that. And I'm like, that might be the case, buddy. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is whether or not you're making a decision to respond to that in a positive way, or what you do with it.
That's right. That's right. You know, and if I had one word that was probably the heaviest critique that I have on modern culture, it would be victimization. Oh. It's that every single special interest group or group of people, no matter who they are, what's being encouraged in them is victim mentality and saying, nothing that's happening to me is my own fault. There's always some other aspect keeping me down and making it so that I can't succeed. And it's like, you know what? People don't even care about you enough to hold you specifically down. Nobody even gives a shit enough about you. It's like nobody's holding you back from succeeding but you. And I firmly believe that this is true. And of course, that's a whole other can of worms to say that kind of stuff when you belong to the group that I belong to. But that, you know, it's this whole nature of saying, whoever I am, I want special treatment. And it's sort of that whole Tyler Durden thing. It's like, look, you're not a unique snowflake. You're one of billions of people on this planet. So put up or shut up. Deal with it or fuck off. Because this constant idea of victimization and victim culture and all the rest of this kind of stuff is going to keep you just that. Because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because
Absolutely.
If you believe you are one, then you are one. And you
Absolutely.
begin to become a victim.
Yeah.
We Duffy and I have talked about that like ad nauseum. About like, if you believe that the universe is out to get you, if you believe that everything is against you, if you believe it's all going to fall apart, you will find ways to sabotage yourself. Lighter note again, what's your favorite exercise?
Man, the one I'm best at, I guess, of the big four is the bench press is the only one that I actually have that I would consider to be like beyond an intermediate level number, but the one I enjoy the most, I enjoy squatting and deadlifting the most. There's very few things that compare to the feeling after pulling heavy weight off the ground or whatever heavy for you is. I think that the deadlift probably makes you feel the strongest and the most like a man in that primal way. And like my buddy Jack says, I do the deadlift because I can, because I'm a man, and because it feels good. It's just very raw, and pick up heavy shit and take back to cave kind of feeling. So I think the deadlift probably is my favorite. But I'm not very good at the deadlift, and so that's also been fun, is that it's been my weakest lift, and so the one I've had to pay the most attention to, and for that reason I enjoy it, because it's kind of like a game, you know what I mean? Figuring out these new little tactics and techniques to increase your deadlift. So
are you prefer conventional or sumo?
I fall into the category of people that believe that the conventional deadlift is the true deadlift. Like, what does it matter? My deadlift is fucking pathetic anyways. But like a conventional deadlift is definitely like I think it's more difficult for most people. But the sumo deadlift decreases the range of motion and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And so I think that the conventional deadlift is a more glorious lift.
Okay, yeah. You know, it's very interesting because people argue about that all day long. And I mean, there's so many factors that make you more, suited to do one than the other. And it just...
I'm not one of those guys who, when I see someone sumo deadlift, that I'm like, oh, well, it was a sumo deadlift. Hey, did they get the weight up off the ground? Did they pick the weight up and they lock it out? I don't really care how they did it, as long as they did it safely and with decent form, you know what I mean? And they didn't hurt themselves. I'll congratulate them on whatever weight they picked up off the ground.
Heck yeah.
So it's just weightlifting, people. It's not the end of the world. Low bar squat, high bar squat. I low bar and I high bar. It depends on what I feel like doing that day. My low bar squat is something that I've just started doing, and already I'm stronger with my low bar squat than I am with my high bar.
But that's normal though.
So but I also use a safety squat bar some days if my biceps are lit up, and so that's harder. So I don't squat as much weight on the safety bar. For me, it's like, are you exercising? Are you training heavy at the maximum of your capability? Are you putting forth, heroic action towards something? If you are, I don't really care how you do it.
Absolutely.
You enjoy it.
I tell people all the time, I don't care what you do, as long as whatever you do it to the best that you can. Because like, if you want to go run a 100-mile race, freaking do it, man. That's great. That's fantastic. Do it smart. Please do it smart. But I mean, like, there are so many challenges to be conquered out there. And, you know, for us to, like, you know, piss and complain toward one another about, like, this one is better, this one's not as good, I hate this particular thing, why are you front squatting? You know, like, shut up and go do something.
Right. Right. Well, and it's like, I have a lot of friends too, you know, there's obviously this sort of push with Operation Werewolf for lifting weights and doing martial arts and stuff like that. But I also have friends who don't really lift weights, but they run. You know what I mean? They're not, you know, they're never going to pull even like 4 wheels off the ground, but they run like crazy, you know? And so to me, it's like, find what you love physically too. It's just the same as what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Find out what you're passionate about or what you really enjoy physically. I fucking despise running. I'm like the dwarf in Lord of the Rings, dude. I'm like very dangerous over short distances, but I don't run long distance for shit. And I also have really, really bad knees. But if you love running and you're good at it, knock yourself out, man. Enjoy it. And don't let anybody tell you that it's less than weightlifting. You're doing something that's really hard to do, that's very physical, and that's very challenging.
You know, it's very different.
Your W. Take pride in it.
It's very different. You know, some people got to hold the battle axe, you know, yourself. And then some people got to, you know, go hunt, you know, run something down and hunt it, you know. And there's different people do different stuff in the tribe.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fantastic.
If you need somebody to get a message, to the other town really fast, I'm not your guy to do that. Yell out.
Let's see here. Do you have a most recommended or most gifted book?
Ooh, you know, probably the one I've actually bought the most for people has been The Way of Men by my friend Jack Donovan, just because I've shifted that actually though to his newer one, Becoming a Barbarian, because I think it covers more of like the philosophy of sort of why we do what we do. I think it's a great book. I bought it for a lot of people. Beyond that, I've got so many different friends with so many different things that they're into. The other book I probably bought for more people, because a lot of my friends ride motorcycles. There's a great book by a guy named John Hall called Riding on the Edge. It's a killer book if you're into motorcycles or motorcycle culture. But other than that, man, it really depends on what they're into. You know what I mean? Some of my friends like comic books. You know what I mean? Some of them like Nietzsche and Heidegger and stuff like that. So you just got to buy for the person. But I do love buying books. It's a gift that everybody's always happy to get.
You know, my BA is in philosophy, and I'm not sure that I would want to read Heidegger for fun. Nietzsche for fun, that's fine, but not Heidegger.
Yeah. Some of it's pretty dry, man. It's like good to have a basis in that stuff, but I'm not reading it like at the end of the night for entertainment's sake. That's
no, like friends, that's like with Conan. That's like me trying to hand you the, you know, like anything written by Kant, and you're like, yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that way about a lot of that stuff. You know, I was lucky enough to have a dad who sort of enforced that education on me when I was younger. I was homeschooled, and so I was sort of over it by the time I was about 15, and I said, hey, look, I want to be working. I was working as a roofer at the time. I said, I don't really have time to do both. And so my dad made me the deal that, you know, we had the big great books collection or whatever on a shelf in the house. And he said, all right, if you work your way through this and you write me a report on each one so that I know you've read it and at least understood some of it, then you can be done. And so that was what I did for sort of my last year of formal education at home. So I don't know how much I retained it because, man, I was trying to get through it. But, you know, I had to read a lot of it, and I think it is important to form that base of self-education on a lot of this stuff, and it is good to read, and it's good to inform yourself of opinions, even if they're opinions you don't agree with. Just like we talked about before, you know, you don't have to agree with it to enjoy reading it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm really glad to hear that you're a homeschooler. We homeschool. Yeah. We homeschool my son. And
I was homeschooled.
He was homeschooled.
I'm going to homeschool the little one when she's old enough.
And most of that is just because I don't trust anybody else with my son's education.
It's a good reason to homeschool.
What's more important to you than your children? And if the children are the most important thing to you, as I know they were to my parents, they found the time and they made the time in order to do that and to educate us in the way that they wanted us to be educated. Certainly when we got older, we made a lot of our own decisions. And Mom, I'm sorry, because I know that we were not the easiest sons to raise, you know what I mean? And we gave her hell and we got into a lot of trouble and all the rest of it. But I think about it, and nobody's probably expecting me to quote the Bible, but I'm going to. But
you're a PK, not you like.
Yeah.
So
there's a great verse in Proverbs that says, "Raise your sons in the right and true way, and when they grow old, they'll return to it." And it's, certainly I deviated a lot from what I think my parents would have wanted for me. But the older I get, the more I realize how much I'm just like my dad. And how valuable that education was when I was younger. And it's one of the things I'm most grateful to my parents for as an adult that I was not incredibly stoked on when I was young. But looking back on it, man, I have a huge amount of gratitude to them that they took the time and that I was important enough to them that they would invest the time in my education like that.
Absolutely. I think that's something that
so your kids will love you.
So what now?
Your kids will love you for it even if they don't right now.
Yeah, not so much right now. He would much rather be doing other things that are not that.
Yeah, but there's no reason to trust anyone else with that kind of responsibility, especially not the government. I mean, I've seen them screw some pretty simple things up. My kids are not going to fall under that category.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now it's sketchier and sketchier, and the fact is I know that anybody who sees this, the immediate thing that everybody says is they say, well, we don't have the time, or we can't do this, or we can't do that. And I do realize that things are not quite the same way as it was in my folks' day, which is that it is more and more difficult for, say, a female to be maybe a stay-at-home mom because, everything is more expensive and inflation and cost of living and all this kind of stuff. And I get that. But my dad also, waded through like 4-foot snow as a lumberjack and worked nights at a restaurant washing dishes so that my mom never had to get a job. They were never on welfare. They never were on food stamps or any of the rest of this shit. My dad worked his ass off so that my mom could stay at home and take care of our education and stuff like that. And so where there's a will, there's a way, as they say.
Yeah. But that's our responsibility as men. Like to do that kind of stuff. Like so that our wives can do that kind of thing.
Yep, and in the most callous way, what is the line in the movie The Departed? One of the guys is beating the shit out of a guy trying to get money from him, and the guy says, "Oh man, it's too much money, it's too much money." And he says, "This is America. If you can't make more money, you're a fucking douchebag. What are you gonna do?" And the guy says, "Make more money." It's like you live in a first world country and you have more tools at your disposal to make more money or side money than ever probably before in the history of mankind. And if you can't make more money, I don't know, maybe you don't care enough. If your kids aren't important enough to do it, that's your business, not my business. It's really ultimately up to the individual. But if you really care about something, you'll find a way to make it happen.
And at the very least, even if you can't, go that full distance of just full-time homeschooling your kid, at the very least be involved if you are going to send them to somebody else. Because if you're just giving that full responsibility and blindly trusting, whether it's the government or a private school or whatever else, then, I mean, the very least you can do minimalistically is to at least be looking over everything that's going on and being in contact with the teachers that are doing that kind of work.
Because like it or not, whether or not you agree with any of it, school is a process of indoctrination. And it's what are your children being indoctrinated with? Are they being indoctrinated with, just a how to are they like these are the things that you should think, or are they being taught how to think? Because if the one thing that I can instill in my son in homeschooling is a desire to learn on his own, if I can do that and I can push him to just consume on his own and learn on his own, then I've already won, because he's going to do all that himself.
Let people know where they can find you.
Most of my stuff is under one roof these days. You can go to operationwerewolf.com and find most of my stuff. I have a free blog, which is the War Journal, on my website. I also have a subscription thing that comes out once a month called the Inner Circle that you can also access through there. All my other stuff is on YouTube if you look up Operation Werewolf, but I've actually shifted over now, so go and find me on Vimeo because YouTube keeps deleting all of my videos and Instagram keeps deleting my accounts and all this stuff because it's not cool to talk about self-improvement anymore.
Yeah, well...
we haven't got hit with that yet, so hopefully that doesn't end up being the case.
No, hopefully that is the case. Because now, hopefully we get to that point, because then we're doing something right. Of course, then it's just going to be really hard.
Would you like to plug Inner Circle so you can talk about that a little bit more? I know that's your subscription-based stuff. So.
Yeah, I've been doing it only since the beginning of the year, and what it is a collection of sort of articles, essays, video blog, video journal kind of stuff and I just put it all together, and I release it once a month at the middle of the month. It's $10 a month, and it's quite a bit of material. And so anybody who's interested in my writing or videos or stuff that I do on a higher level, it's sort of a way for them to access just a greater amount of content. I do still put out a lot of videos and articles for free and all that stuff. This is just sort of a way for people who want more to check that out. I also do a lot of this year I'm doing a lot of sort of exclusive content just for those people, exclusive shirts or stuff like that that's only going to be available to people doing that, and also events and stuff like that that are only going to be available to subscribers. So awesome. It's sort of the way to kind of get in the know.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so much, Paul. You've been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.